Hi, this is David again. Like I said, I try to respond to all requests. Those that are Mormon that request that I die or commit suicide. I've been thinking I want to honor everyone's request, but I'm not sure that's a fair request. This request is about the duties and the responsibilities of a stake, S-T-A-K-E, president in the Mormon Church. Someone wrote in and said, what is a stake president? Is it a president made out of a stake, like a scarecrow? I don't know. Well, I do know. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to be as clear on this as I can and as honest. I want to be as anti-Mormon as I can because I'm going to be honest, and that's anti-Mormon, I know. Now, let me bring up, who knows? I have such trouble doing this crap. Here it comes. Okay. All right. This is coming out of the 2010 Church Handbook of Instructions to stake presidents and to bishops. This is the handbook no one is allowed to have. Why they sent me one? Maybe they think I'm going to be a stake president. All right, I'm going to just hit highlights because, anything that Mormons do, there's thousands of pages. It's like Congress. They can't just say one or two pages. It's got to be 18 million pages. So, okay, here's the duties of the stake president, okay? And this is, he is the presiding high priest, which means he's the big kahuna in the whole stake. There's usually 9 wards, or 8 or 9 wards in a stake. He's a common judge. Now, it's funny how the handbook can change the priesthood. These people, they are comical. The only common judge years ago in the Mormon Church was the bishop. Even the bishop could not be over his laws or his decisions couldn't be overridden by a stake president. Well, they called the bishop a common judge. Well, because some of the common judges made some decisions that the authorities didn't like, now they have it kind of militarized. So now the stake president, he's a common judge, so he can knock the shit out of a bishop's decision. So, they're just protecting themselves, circling the wagons. But anyway, this new authority has now come to stake president. He's a common judge. He oversees welfare matters. Now, to a certain extent, that's true, and to a certain extent, it's not true. A bishop has an authority. Gosh, I can't remember because it was in the handbook somewhere else I read. The bishop has an authority up to whatever, food and clothing and the in-kind donations. He's pretty much God. Stake president doesn't get too involved there. But Mormons, when you start giving away money or paying bills that cost them something, now the stake president has an overall veto power. And I think I have a video. I didn't know this on the welfare that the bishop can authorize $5,000. I think the stake president can do $10,000, and the general 70 that's over the stake in that area can go up to 25,000 in medical bills and other kinds of things. So the stake president, what they say in the book and what really is true, figure that out for yourself. Okay, he oversees records, finances, and properties. Now that's pretty true. The stake president is more of an administrator. The bishop is in the mud, the blood, and the beer. I don't think he can be in the beer if he's a bishop. Anyway, he's in the battlegrounds and he sees people and the gays and the homosexuals and the fornicators and those that drink and smoke, have tattoos, rings in their nose. He has to deal with those people. And the stake president, he's just cool. And usually he's over 6 feet tall. They don't tell you this. The handbook I told you the other day said that fat people can't go on missions. Well, tall people are stake presidents. If you're, 5'2" or 5'4", the best you're going to do in the Mormon Church is a bishop. So the bigger you are, the higher you get in the Mormon Church. So there's the stake president. He holds all the priesthood keys in that stake, which means he's the power and he's the authority, and he can hardly be overridden, but, whoever's over him can override him, just like the military. Okay, let's see some of the highlights here of his leadership. I'm not even going to read that because there is no leadership. He just bows his head and reads this book like I am. I'm showing leadership here. Okay. He's the presiding high priest. Okay, we went over that. Let's see. In meetings, the stake president plans the stake meetings listed in Handbook 2, Chapter 18. Calling in releases, I know that he can call his own counselors. The following counselors in his presidency, he can call the stake patriarch and he can call bishops. And I know he can call elders quorum presidents. Yeah, there it is, elders quorum presidents. And the state clerk, who is in money and takes notes of all the famous things that the stake president hears or speaks on. Okay, auxiliary programs, that's boring. Welfare, that's boring. That's just, the good old boy system. Public affairs. So if something's screwed up in his stake, he tells all of his bishops to shut their mouth, and then he goes in front of the cameras and he uses his high intelligence. Usually he's a little better educated, and usually he makes a little more money than a bishop. And he wears probably a suit to work. And most bishops, wear regular clothes to work. They're not regular professional people. He's in charges of the records and finance, a common judge. He conducts worthiness interviews as outlined in 7.1.3. He can authorize his counselors to be asking 12-year-olds, girls, how often they masturbate. He can delegate that authority, but I think that he probably does most of those interviews himself, if you know what I mean. Okay, the duties of a bishop, it goes on here to say, but we're looking at page 4. We're looking really, page 3, page 2 of the duties of a stake president. Now, let me just add in my 4 cents worth. My experience, what it says in the book, and what really happens, as you know, especially in the Mormon church, and a lot of places in life, but a lot in the Mormon church, is what they say and what they do are two totally different things. Here's my experience with stake presidents. They kind of walk around with their shoulders back and kind of like the I'm thinking of the walruses that have a harem, and the main walrus who has the 50 women, he kind of struts around. that reminds me of a stake president. Usually they're very aloof, they're not real warm, they're not real friendly. Some bishops are, not all, but some bishops are kind of warm and friendly, but stake presidents are administrators, and they go through like a OSHA inspector looking for problems in the stake, that you're doing something, or something is being taught, or the lawnmower is not working, and that the satellite dish is not turned on. He's an administrator, so I guess there's places for administrators all over the world, but that's basically what he does. And then he babysits the bishops and trains them and tells them, what to do. Now, here's one of the things. I hope this video goes, because I made this video about 4 hours ago, and YouTube lost it. Here's my experience with stake presidents, okay? They are the ones that make the final determination for Melchizedek, which means boys, and men, priesthood holders, to excommunicate them. Now, a bishop can excommunicate an Aaronic priesthood holder, which is a boy under 19, and women. They can just have their asses grass, and the bishop's the lawnmower, and there's nothing more that can be said or done. Well, if you hold the Melchizedek priesthood, which means you're an elder or you're 70, well, they don't have 70s anymore. Jesus appeared and said, I don't want any more 70s, but high priest. So if you're accused, usually of something your penis has done, and you can declare that. I mean, that is a good defense. My penis did that, not me. I tried to talk him out of it, but the church doesn't take that as much of a defense. So you get this letter in the mail. Now, I haven't been excommunicated. I haven't had church discipline and that kind of crap. All the Mormons want to go, he's the devil, he's apostatized. Well, I don't know if I've apostatized. I'm using my free agency. And I have read the history of the church, and 2 14-year-olds rolling around in bed with a 38-year-old man that calls himself a prophet. He ain't no prophet to me. He's describing heaven to me. I'm just bullshitting Okay, so you get a letter in the mail, and I'm going to paraphrase the letter. Your ass is grass. It'll say Thursday at 7:30 in the stake president's high council room, the church is going to present a case that is going to destroy your ass. You're going to lose your wife, your children, your income, your home, your pride, your dignity, everything. We're going to strip you naked. It's like, oh, okay, I'll show up. And half the time the Mormons do. Now, you can resign from the Mormon church at any time. Once you resign, it's over. They can't do crap to you. But they keep you on a list that if you ever come back, you were going to get excommunicated. What a bunch of idiots. So, you go to this meeting, okay, and they have this table, which is like 6 miles long, and the stake president is way, way away from you, and you're just this little pissant Mormon guy at the end of the table. Well, there's 6 high counselors on the left and 6 high counselors on the right. And the stake president will go through a little speech that says, now, these 6 are for the church, and these 6 over here are for you. And you say, well, I've never even met them. They don't know anything about it. They're my defense. We've never spoken. Are you getting the picture? Do you see a kangaroo court coming? Do you see a court of love up the kazoo coming at you? Yes, you do. So you look over and you go, gee, I don't even know these brethren. Well, they're all former bishops or stake presidents or high priest, and they're on the high council of that stake during this time period. And so you look at them that are for you, and they got this shit-ass grin on their face like, we've never met you. We don't know anything about this case. We have no idea how the laws of the church works. And we're just going to sit here because if we say shit, we're going to be in that chair with you. So you're there begging those 6 men to, say something good about you. They don't. So anyway, the stake president then, some of the tactics in these courts of love. Now, the Mormon church has changed this term. They now call them disciplinary councils. But that's very similar to a garbage man being an environmental engineer. It's just words. Cults love these words and they throw them around and it makes the average person go, oh, disciplinary councils, court of love, that makes sense to somebody, but not me. So the stake president, he'll go, we're having this court today because you've been accused of your weenie being in Mrs. Smith's home and in Mrs. Smith. Now, the 6 guys that are for you, they're laughing their ass off. They're going, yeah, how good was it? And the guys for the church are going, oh, bad weenie. So you're sitting there going, oh my God, I'm going to lose my whole life here. And so he says, basically, because you can't take an attorney, you're supposed to be able to take witnesses, but the witnesses have to be good members of the church. And if you take a good member of the church, her ass is going to be in that chair too. The chair is like the electric chair. And so when you say to Brother Agnew, could you come and testify that I'm a good person? And he says, where? And he says, oh, a court of love. No, I'm busy that night. You don't have a friend in the world. And the 6 that are defending you, they're just laughing because they know your ass is going to be gone in 20 minutes. So the stake president may even give you a chance to say something. Now, there's times that you don't get to say anything. There's times you don't get. I was in immigration court helping a friend a couple of months ago and was up in front of a stake president, and he thought the immigration court was a court of love. I didn't get to say a word. And I was defending, in immigration, you can have a lay attorney. Doesn't have to be a JD degree. So anyway, the stake president will look down at you and say, well, what do you have to say? And you say, well, sir, I think it's a terrible thing, what you just said. And anyone that engaged in those kinds of behaviors probably ought to be excommunicated. Here, let me talk to the little general. He knows more about this than I do. Oh, the little general says, he was a bad boy, but I'm innocent. He's testifying right here. I'm innocent. I had nothing to do with Mrs. Smith. So, a long story short, he will hold up I don't even have a prop. Wait a minute. I don't want to say I don't have a prop because it makes me look like I'm cheap. He'll hold up a book that's like this thick and has a whole bunch of papers hanging out of it. And he'll say, these are the people in the ward and in your family that says your weenie was in Mrs. Smith and you're a bad, bad person. And what do you have to say for yourself? Well, one of my friends, he's a polygamist now. He moved from the LDS church to the FLDS. He said, well, sir, could I look at who is against me? No, this is sacred. This is secret. I have 2 stacks of people saying you're an absolute asshole. Well, I thought the Constitution allowed me to, confront my accusers. Those are just words. This is the Lord Jesus has talked to me. I said, well, how do I defend myself? I don't know what people have said. It doesn't matter. And that's the first truthful thing he said all night. It doesn't matter. So anyway, this is the part that you're not going to believe, because I don't believe it. They will go down through the the high counselors, and he'll say, Brother Green, do you have any questions? And Brother Green will go, now, he's for the church. It doesn't matter. Both sides are equal. No one is for you. And Brother Green will say, well, Brother David, how often did you and Mrs. Smith engage in illicit sexual activities? And I go, well, I don't know, 70 times 70. Because she forgave me every time. He'll go, yes. And now I know that Mr. Black there, he has a question too. Well, Mr. David, when you had sexual intimacy, did you engage in oral sex? And I said, well, do you mean sucking on her boob or something else? Well, and they go on with the details. And these guys have no sex life, none. And they want to hear every story blow by blow. I think that's funny, blow by blow. I don't care if you don't think it's funny. But anyway, they go around pretty much the whole table, and most of them will have indecent questions. And did you do this through your garments? And, well, sometimes, it goes on and on. And so they got to get the details, and all these guys are just smiling because, they haven't had sex in 20 years. And the sex they had, they were wearing their garments and all the lights were on. I mean, these guys are deprived of normal human sexual activity. So if they know you're having a good time, that gives them a good time. It's called titillation. So anyway, now that they've gone through humiliating the shit out of you and accusing you with a big sack of papers that you can't read and you can't see, they're going to say, okay, now, Brother David, would you go sit in the hall? Well, this is like going out in the hall at the principal's office where I've been. So I recognize this, and you'll see this poor dude sitting in the hall, and the high council room door is shut, and he's got the look on his face like, I'm screwed. And he is. He is. And all the people walking through the building go, oh, God, his weenie must have been out of his pants. They're having a high council meeting there on his weenie. So after, 15, 20 minutes, they said, would you come back in? Yes. And would you sit down in the electric chair? We're going to brace your arms and your legs and put the helmet on you. Do you have anything, last words to say? And you can say, well, I'm innocent. Me and Mrs. Smith, she died 8 years ago, and this never happened. Well, that's irrelevant. So, okay. And so the stake president then will announce the decision. Now, here's 13 people that all voted against you, because the 12 on the jury are the employees of the stake president. And if they say, well, I think the guy is innocent, let's give him a little bit of a probation or chance, the stake president can look across the table and go, what? Oh, nothing, sir, nothing. So this is the kangaroo court of a century. It's laughable. The Mormons will talk about the Constitution. The Mormons will talk about equal rights, and they'll talk about amendment, privacy acts, and Bill of Rights, etc. They don't obey any of that. They just ramrod and do what they damn well please. And I've had a couple of friends that have been exed. So I'm somewhat familiar with the tactic. So I think that's an important part to bring up for the gentleman that was looking for what does a stake presidency do. His job is basically to kick ass, to watch the money, to criticize, to train, and to make sure that the church throws out any riffraff. And he is basically chosen. I think a stake president is chosen by the 70s that are over, not the 70s, the regional reps that are over that area of the country where he lives. And they put in, the church will say Jesus speaks to us and tells us who the stake president should be. Now that's the official word of the Mormon church. But they put out a little paper that says to all the bishops and others, who do you think would make a good stake president? It's not always a call of inspiration. We call it a call of desperation. Because the Mormons don't talk to Jesus. I just saw a report this morning on Monson and a couple of them. I can't even remember. It was in the Salt Lake Temple. And they admitted they'd never seen Jesus. They'd never had a vision. But you can have a testimony and be a prophet without any of that stuff. It was shocking, but it was there. I can quote it if somebody calls me on it. But anyway, they take this list. And then like, you're too young. Your whole audience is way too young here. They're like Karnak the Magnificent. Johnny Carson used to put an envelope with information against his head and read the information in the envelope. Well, that's kind of how the Mormon prophet chooses stake presidents and bishops. There's 4 or 5 names or whatever in there, and then they discuss it, and Karnak, the Jesus the Magnificent, will tell them, you know, which one will be the best stake president. So I hope it gives you a little bit of an overview of stake presidents. They're the next in line after stake president to make money. The bishops and the stake presidents, all they have is kind of a per diem. And it's nothing like the upper authorities. I mean, they can make free phone calls, and they have free calls to the attorney and the law department, and they can give out welfare. They can give out welfare to themselves. But anyway, the stake president, if he moves up into a regional rep or into a mission president, he starts to get money. He starts to get a salary, income, and retirement, and perks, and insurance. And so one reason that the bishops always are trying to move up to be a stake president, because that is the next step after stake president to actually get the Mormon tithing money. It's a lay clergy that doesn't get paid to a point, and then after the stake president, it pays good. Real good. So hopefully you understand a little bit what a stake president does, and I never got to be there. And I'm happy about that. Thanks.